So I think, yeah, we'll give it another minute. We have folks just jumping in. So just quick introductions. Brian Tobin, part of the Start GMB board. Well, we're meeting today with Virginia Grant. This is part of our Ask Me Anything series. So in AMA, I think a lot of us are familiar with this general topic. We want to be really receptive to any questions that you have. So Virginia's here and prepped, and we're going to kind of start this call with just a little bit of like who Virginia is and like why we're on this call and really the importance of these AMAs with our community. And then we're going to pass it to Virginia, and we're going to answer any question that folks may have. Virginia, that sound great?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks.
Cool. I think I talked for long enough to get us over that hump. So, hey, let's go ahead and get started. And Virginia, if you want to start with just a quick introduction of yourself, then we can kick off the AMA portion.
All right, awesome. I'm Virginia Grant. I am the executive director of a local organization called Gainesville Black Professionals. And I wanted to share just a little bit of my background to kind of put into perspective why I started the organization. I grew up in a small town that's about an hour, maybe an hour and a half south of here. And it's called Weirsdale. And it's a very country town. We grew up on dirt roads, chickens in the backyards, pigs, cows, basically a little farm. And in that small town in the 70s, it was very clear that there were racial lines there at that time. So it was clearly Black, white. We didn't have too many Hispanic people in the town that I grew up in. But the thing that I learned very early in my life there was that there was an overall underlying sense that white was right and Black was wrong. Meaning that the white people had property, they had money, they were educated. The list goes on and on and on and on. And of course, Black was the opposite of that. And it was predominantly white. I, for some reason, very early and continue to this day, disagreed with that philosophy. It was something that would not settle in my spirit. I could not believe that I was less than anyone else because I just happened to be born Black. So, and then I also, as I grew up, learned that there was even more differences because somehow when you go from 5th grade, elementary school, into 6th grade, middle school, you take tests that I don't even think you realize you're taking. And all of a sudden in middle school, you're now placed based on how well you did on those tests. Well, fortunately for me, I always did well on tests. So I was put in the upper academic classes when I got to middle school. And guess what? When I got there, I was there by myself. I was now really the only Black person in the majority of my classrooms. And going through that, then I got to high school, and then I realized other Black people don't necessarily like the smart Black people. So now I was placed into another group. But I continued to resist that philosophy as well. I was like, there's got to be a place for me where I fit, where I can be smart, I can be Black, and I can be a darker Black woman and still be successful. So somewhere in high school, I learned about historically Black colleges and universities. So of course, I got to Florida A&M University as quickly as I could, immediately following graduation. And there, I found all the Black people I was looking for. They were wealthy, they were intelligent, they thought like I thought, and it was beautiful. I had found the place where I wanted to be. So I share that with you all because I think it's relevant to why I started the organization that I started here in Gainesville. Because when I moved to Gainesville about 8 or 9 years ago now, I found myself feeling the way I felt back at home. And not just against the racial lines, but even within my own Black community, I didn't feel like I was being received. Because in Gainesville, what a lot of people don't realize is that there's people who are native to Gainesville, and then there's everybody else. And if you're not native to Gainesville, I see Steve knows what I'm talking about, you are not accepted the same way. So again, I just refused to buy into that philosophy. My spirit would not allow me to buy into the philosophy that I could not be loved on, that I could not be accepted, that I could not find a place for myself here in Gainesville. Well, I didn't have a place to run to this time, so I had to create it myself. So I started Gainesville Black Professionals because I just knew that there were Black people in our community that were positive, educated, well-versed, wealthy, and I just wanted to be around those people. In addition to that, I just really believe there were also white people and Hispanic people that wanted to experience a diverse lifestyle. And so when we started the organization, it was truly just for me to find those people that I knew existed here and bring them together. Since I did that, a lot of people have brought into the concept of what I was trying to share. And I know that's only because they felt it in their hearts and their spirits anyways. No, I didn't do this great marketing campaign. I just say, hey, come out. This is what you'll find when you get here. And everybody's like, yeah, that's what I want, so I'm coming. So since then, we have basically realized that our role in the community is, one, to bring people together, and two, to share and tell their stories. So a couple of the platforms that we have a podcast, we have a magazine, our website, we do a newsletter, and all of these things are just really to showcase professionals in our community, to tell our stories, and to bring people from diverse backgrounds together so that we can all love on one another and support one another, collaborate with one another, network with one another. So I wanted to kind of like share that with you so you have an idea of really why this is so important to me, why this means so much, that we have a sense of community that goes beyond our day-to-day. Brian, is that a good intro? Should I go on, or can we open it up? What do you want to do now?
Oh, I think that's awesome. And I think we can just start going into the AMA portion of it. And as we kind of transition, I just want to do a quick thanks for our sponsors, because we couldn't put these events on without them. So just quick shout outs to Interactive Resources, OP Software, Hutchinson 352, InfoTech Feather, and Santa Fe College. If you're not familiar with these organizations in the community, please familiarize yourself with them. They're awesome. And they're really, right now, what they're doing is they're sponsoring a dialogue with folks in our community, which is fantastic. And Virginia, go ahead, sorry.
Especially Feather.
Oh, they're the best. It's funny, when you and I talked last week, I think one thing that stood out to me from, because we had just met each other and talking about Gainesville Black Professionals, that the community was not just intended to be, or the group was not intended just for Black individuals in Gainesville. It was meant to be a little bit broader. And I will admit that I definitely have the stigma when I see a title of an organization like that I think it's only for Black individuals. So maybe let's open up the AMA with, how have you handled that challenge of getting more people to feel involved that are not just the individuals that are included in the name of that group?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. That has definitely been something that we have evolved into understanding how to handle it, which I think is good for a Black organization to realize how to handle it, because now we can share it to majority organizations, because predominantly white organizations have said for years that they've had a hard time figuring out how to diversify. So the first thing that I did, because people would come up to me, white professionals would come up to me, and they would say, oh yeah, I've heard about you. I told my coworker they should come. I said, okay, well, why didn't you come? And I would get various reasons. Either, well, I didn't know if I was welcome. I didn't want to be disrespectful. So I think the thing is that I was just willing to have those conversations. I was just willing to say, yes, you are invited. Don't just invite your friend, come with your friend. You come, we want you there. And then we also began to share in our Facebook posts and our social media posts that this is for everyone. So I think it's just trying to be intentional and letting people know that everyone is welcome. People have suggested that we change the name of the organization, which is something that I'm still very resistant to, because I don't want to change what we are. I just want to make what we are available and open to everyone, and make everyone feel like they're welcome there.
And
I think that's awesome. Go ahead, Greg.
And And Brian, do you mind if I ask a follow-up question to that, unless you have one?
No, please do. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what can organizations like Start GNV do to better represent not only the Black community, but help the Black community thrive in situations where I feel like perhaps our initiatives or directives are focused on something that's not as important as this? So I was wondering, and that's very blunt. I see the board members here and there, all of us here. I'm one too. But I would really like, Virginia, your perspective, just to start it off hot and say, what can we as organizations as small as Start GNV or as large as Feather, what are some of the things as you know, and what can we do to help the Black community, and specifically the Black community? That's a very broad question. That's a very broad answer, and I know that's very difficult to answer, but I'm hoping that sort of drives the conversation towards something like that.
Okay.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Cool. So my immediate response is that I don't want the conversation or the focus to be on helping the Black community. I think that we all need to help our community, and our community will not strive as long as we're looking at Black, white, Hispanic. Like, it has to be one community. But that's an easy out to the answer. To more specifically answer your question, I feel like organizations like yourself, like Excel, like the Gainesville Chamber, what you all can do is start by attending our events. You know that at our events, there is going to be a predominant force of Black professionals there. On average, our events are 125, 150, sometimes 200 people at an event. So anything that you may be looking for, there's probably someone at that event that can offer it, whether you're hiring, whether you want new board members, whether you're looking for a realtor, whatever your needs may be. And I think that by attending our events, it's more of an organic connection that happens because you're having a drink, we're all relaxed, we're all chill, we're having fun, you know, we're relaxed. And you just say, oh, by the way, I was thinking about this. Or you hear someone that says, hey, I'm interested in doing this, and it resonates with you. So you know that's a true connection. Whereas if you just send out a job posting, everybody knows how to present for interviews, as opposed to being in a situation and people are just talking and you're like, oh, I really connect with that person. So that's the first thing. I just really think connecting with us, and we're not the only organization, there's other organizations. I do think that we are very unique because I think that our goal has always been to make the population of Black professionals in our community accessible to the greater Gainesville community. So I think that's something that is unique to us. So definitely attending our events, following our Facebook page, signing up for our newsletter, advertising in Synergy, our magazine, telling
I love it. I love it too. Yeah, yeah.
Telling
it's
your
great branding. Yeah. Oh, I see that clap. I see that clap over there, Taylor. Yeah.
Telling your stories in Synergy. Like this year, more than any other year, I realized how important Synergy is. There are so many stories. There are so many people right now that just want to share their experiences. So, and Synergy is not an all-Black magazine. It's diverse. We want everybody from every background to be featured in our magazine. So if you have stories that you want to share, please reach out to us. That's another way for us just to connect.
Oh, thank you. That was an amazing answer to my question. Brian, it looks like we got some questions in the feed. Do you want to
Sure.
give some softball? Yeah.
Yeah. So this
Cool.
next
Thank
one.
you, Virginia. I appreciate you.
Sure.
Yeah, that was great. And I'd love to, before we close up, talk a little bit more about Synergy, because that's something I'd like to know more about the magazine, how we can get involved. We talked about the storytelling aspect of it, and I think that's a definitive takeaway that we can all contribute to after this call. So let's revisit that at the end. The question that we have here is more career-oriented. So the question was that you transitioned from a prior career in healthcare, and now you work in a tech startup scene. You work over at Feather, for folks that don't know. Tell us, like, what prompted you to make that career shift? It's a fairly large move. What has been the most different? What have you liked? What have you not liked? And kind of just walk us through your general experience with that.
Okay, so I guess it's been almost 3 years ago now. Aiden and I met because we served on a board at the chamber. And we met and we started talking, and then we set up a one-on-one. We went out and we had dinner together, and we sat and we talked. I instantly fell in love with Feather in that meeting, and wanted to say to Aiden, you really need to just hire me. But I didn't because I wasn't ready. So I continued to work where I was. I was working at a psychiatric hospital, as a matter of fact. So I continued to do that. And then eventually it was like, okay, you really just need a change. And so I kept just feeling this inkling to reach out to Aiden and seek employment at Feather. And I'm not sure exactly what it was. I think it was just a desire to experience something different, something new. Like my entire adult career has always been in mental health, substance abuse. So I know that. And I wanted to try something different. And it sounded intriguing. So I text Aiden and said, hey, are you guys hiring? And he was like, well, are you asking for yourself or do you have a referral? I said, well, yeah, I'm pretty interested myself. So he immediately picked up the phone, gave me a call, and we started talking, and hence now I'm here at Feather. The one thing that I have to say about Feather is that, and Feather is unique, I believe, to every company in the world. I think that the culture that Aiden and Alec instill in Feather is bar none. No one can compare to it. But of course, that's my only tech startup that I've been in, but I really like it. But what I've also found, I came from a space where it was mental health. So you would think that the safety and the protection of their employees would be number one on the list. I actually had an afternoon at the hospital where one of the clients literally hung herself. She didn't die, but she hung herself. Had we been 30 seconds later checking on her, she would have been dead. No one to this day has come to me and asked me, how did you feel about that? What was that experience like for you? Do you need to go home? It's just keep going, keep going, keep going. So when I got to Feather in a tech company and just saw the culture and how they are so concerned about the individual, it was like overwhelming to me that this tech company that should be so hands off and so focused on numbers, production, profit, is actually concerned about their people. And I really appreciate that. Being in the tech world, I really hope that more people begin to understand there's so many different roles that you can play. Like, you don't have to understand computers to be in the tech world. There's so many other positions that are available in the tech world. And I think sometimes we hear tech and we think, well, I don't know how to program. I don't understand software. So that's not the place for me. So I don't know. So for me, it's just been almost overwhelming at times, how much love is poured on me there. And then almost surreal at other times. I hope that answers the question. Does it?
It answered it for me.
Okay.
And if no one else,
just to, Brian, if you don't mind me cutting you off, I'm so sorry. That should be inspiration for anyone else who feels like there's perhaps a barrier to entry to the tech scene, when in fact there really isn't. What people like Aiden, and we isolate Aiden because he's a founder and like he looks all he doesn't look like your regular software like staunch founder, but there you shouldn't feel trepidation over being persistent. And being persistent, if you have the qualities, which it surpasses, in my eyes, color, eyes, race, everything. It's down to your skills, and what you just said sort of embodies that, is being persistent and shining your true colors and being your real self allows organic growth, which in the end is going to be what is going to make you most happy. That was my sort of takeaway, which I found was quite beautiful. So
thank you.
And I think so. We have two more questions that came in. And James, we're going to wait on yours because I want to keep the conversation about Feather, because I think this question is important. So Mike, thank you for asking. And so how diverse demographically is Feather?
Demographically, we are working on our diversity demographically. I would say that there is a small percentage of Black people there. There's a small percentage of Hispanic people there. The greatest makeup is probably young, white, right out of college, most of them, which is funny because when I interviewed for the position, someone asked me, well, how are you gonna feel being with all these kids that's just getting right out of college? Like, that's gonna be different. And it has been different. So I would say that our diversity is something that we are definitely working on improving.
Well, let's ask that question too. Well, how does it feel to be working with a bunch of kids out of college?
It's cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you said that and said they're annoying, you know?
Yeah, no, they're not annoying. I think they realize because I'm so old, they just have to listen. So I think it's a lot of respect. I don't know.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. So the next one's a little bit more fun. So what's your favorite tea or coffee place in Gainesville?
I'm not a big tea nor coffee place. Typically, I used to go to Starbucks every morning on my way to work. I am really not sure about Starbucks right now, though. I think Starbucks has a lot of learning that they need to do as far as it relates to race relations and culture and sensitivity. So I'm working from home, so I have not gone to Starbucks, but I'm thinking and I'm leaning towards a personal boycott of Starbucks. So that would probably be the place that I've gone to the most. I wouldn't say they were my favorite. I would just say that they're the one that I was frequenting the most.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think that if we've been paying attention, apologies for the dog in the background, there's improvement on the Starbucks side with how they can handle certain social interactions and what's going on in the world. So I echo that sentiment. The next one is more Gainesville oriented. So, you know, you said I think came here 8-9 years ago. So what's your favorite part of living in Gainesville? Then let's contrast that to, you know, let's be honest, what's your least favorite part of being here?
So my favorite part of living in Gainesville right now is truly my organization, Gainesville Black Professionals. It has opened up the world of Gainesville to me infinitely. There is so much love and there are so many people that reach out to me, and I get to see a different side of people than I think that I saw before. The part that I least like about Gainesville right now is that I believe that Gainesville, there's still an old guard in Gainesville. It's an old guard that needs to be broken, and that's both in the Black community and in the white community. And forgive me because I know I said earlier that we need to be one community, but there's still separation and there's still an old guard on both sides of the house. And I think because a lot of people who lived through the civil rights movement are still alive and are still sitting in seats in our government, they are not only professionally attached, they are also personally attached. So what I mean by that, there are people who sit in office that have been called the N-word by someone who is sitting on a county commission. So there are very, very hurt feelings and open wounds there, which I think prevent us from truly growing. And I think that's the part that I least like about Gainesville. I think that we need to grow past our old hurts. I think that the old guard needs to relinquish their command and allow some progress to happen. And yeah, I think that's the part that I like least.
And there's been recent topics floating around social media with renaming certain locations in Gainesville. Then one that came out today was the University of Florida will stop using a chant that has been used forever. And I'll be honest, I grew up a Gator fan and have said that chant growing up my entire life. And I actually didn't understand what it actually meant behind the scenes. Would you care to share any insight on either of those topics, the renaming of communities, as well as the thing that happened today with the previous Gator chant?
Yeah. So I have very mixed feelings about everything that's going on right now. I think that so gator bait, they're going to get rid of gator bait because I guess it makes reference to little black kids being fed to gators, which is horrific. Which is a good thing that they're getting rid of it. But
can you elaborate more on that? Perhaps, sorry, Virginia, to cut you off. For those in the room that are not aware of that, would you mind educating us on perhaps this gator bait discussion that you're discussing right now? If you don't mind, sort of educating those in the room.
Yeah, but I can only educate them so far because I haven't done enough research yet. What I understand to this point, and it's funny because I've never gone to UF, I don't work at UF, but the president sent out an email today and I had at least 5 people forward it to me. So they felt like I should see this email, which is cool. And then I saw on social media where a part of his email just basically said that they are going to look into renaming buildings and statues, and they're just going to look at the University of Florida. One of the things specifically is that they're going to not allow the chant gator bait to be shared or demonstrated or chanted at games anymore. So, and like I said, I don't know the history of gator bait. I really don't. I apologize. I don't know the history of that. But
that was the clarification I needed. Yeah, I actually didn't know that was, I didn't read that headline this morning.
Oh, okay,
so I apologize. Yeah, no.
Okay, yeah. So the president sent out this lengthy email today, and there are several steps in it as to what the University of Florida is going to do to improve their equity and their race relations, blase, 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 blase. So my feelings on all of this is mixed, and it goes across the board with every institution, is that it is great that it is happening now. But if you can so quickly implement these things, why weren't they implemented before? If you can so quickly pull down the Robert E. Lee statue, you already knew that it was offending people. Why wasn't it already removed? If you can stop waving the Confederate flag at NASCAR, you already knew that it was hurting people. So why didn't you stop before? But the positive side of me says, let's not question why. Let's appreciate the fact that it's happening now, and let's move forward together. But then the cynical part of me says, don't take down the flag if you're not going to allow Black people to race at the same equity and equality and space that you allow other people to race. Don't remove the statue if you are going to allow laws to remain on the books that continue to facilitate racism in America. So gestures are great, and I appreciate those because it means that people are being thoughtful. But the problem in America, and those things are problems, don't get me wrong, those things are problems. But the real problem is that we still have laws on the book. Like one of the things that we need to do as a city and a county, we need to have all of our policies and all of our laws reviewed. So just like the University of Florida is saying they're looking at some things, we need to do an overhaul, and we need to look at every law, every policy, and look for the biases that are in it and how it debilitates other races. Because whether we believe it or not, the majority of those laws were written during Jim Crow laws, was written during the Civil Rights Movement, and they continue to debilitate people. And it's a negative stereotype. But then I saw this other post today, like, she was a real woman. I didn't know she was a real woman. So now we want to erase her? So it's like, it's just so many different layers to this. You know, it's like, and then like last year we got upset because the guy, and I'm sorry for getting emotional, but we got upset last year because the guy named the drink Funny, what's the name of the song, Ariana?
And he was, unrightfully,
But that was someone's history. That's someone's perspective. you know, so I don't know. I'm all over the place. I'm very emotional. I apologize for that part, but I want change. I want to be a part of change, and I want to figure out exactly what my role is in all of that. I hope that answers your question.
I think there's a lot there that when we listen back on this, it'll be a big takeaway from this AMA. And I appreciate being so candid in that response. And I think a lot of us probably feel similar conflicting feelings about the general topics that are going around, and hearing you having those same feelings, at least for me, not speaking on behalf of anyone's here, but for me personally, makes me feel better about some kind of internal conflicts I've been having around that topic too. So I genuinely appreciate that response. Let's go a little lighter, the next question.
Okay.
So let's, and Mike, I see your question about HBCU, and we'll get to that one, but we'll kind of take a step in a lighter direction. What's your favorite local event location here in Gainesville?
Oh, I don't know. So I'm a homebody, and COVID-19, with all due respect, has been one of the best things that has happened to me because I get to stay home. So Taylor, you're laughing, but I'm so serious. So, you know, it's like, I love my house. I love being at home. So as far as like my best event, I'm home. Home does it for me.
I think that's a great answer. You know, home is where the heart is. So
Yeah.
that's, and your home is in Gainesville. So that definitely answers the question. So so Mike asked a question about, in relation to your experience at HBCU and how much it meant. And so can you talk about, has Feather had that same sentiment on you?
Nothing compares to HBCU. Nothing. HBCU gives a Black kid that grew up in a predominantly white community the opportunity to be a majority.
Would you mind explaining quickly just what HBCU is? Just for,
oh, okay, my bad.
No, we all fall in the acronym space often, right?
HBCU is a historically Black college or university. My alma mater is Florida A&M University up in Tallahassee. And I think, and I've always thought, that the best thing that you can do as a parent for your child is to put them in situations where they are the majority, which for white people, that's most of situations, but also a place where they're allowed to be the minority, because those are two very different feelings. When I was in Tallahassee, when I was at when I was at FAMU, I was a completely different person, because all I saw every day were other people who looked just like me. And I was in the majority. So when someone white came on campus, I had the opportunity to either treat them kindly or treat them not so kindly. And either way, whatever my choice was going to be accepted because I was in the majority. And it's not until you are in the majority that you realize you have that power. And then we have to decide as individuals, what do we do with that power? And fortunately for me, thankfully, I was humble enough that I've always just loved on people no matter what. Because I didn't need to feel like a majority, because I already felt like I was important even before I got there. I just needed to experience it. And I loved experiencing it. So Feather, unfortunately, that's one place they cannot compete or compare.
I think that's fair. I think we should all like enter that lens of like trying to treat people with loving compassion and start there. And you know, I appreciate you sharing that. The next question we have is Gainesville specific, and you know, one that I've thought about as well too. But could you share your thoughts on just the East-West divide that we have in the community, and how you think we can potentially improve that? Like what can be done? Your general perspective on that would be very helpful.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing we have in Gainesville is that East-West divide.
What a great question. Yeah.
My perspective on that is that there are still too many people that are happy with it. And as long as the majority of our community is happy with that, I don't think it's going to change. I have, since I started Gainesville Black Professional, have been approached by different people to focus on East Gainesville. And I have been resistant to that because I am not going to do anything that perpetuates the belief that Black people only live in East Gainesville. So as a matter of fact, I never held an event in East Gainesville. Someone asked me to write for their magazine, and what they wanted to do, they wanted to focus on East Gainesville. I said, I'll write for you and I'll share stories about the Black perspective, but it won't be about Black people in East Gainesville, because I'm not going to support that philosophy and that divide. So my answer is that I just still think that there are too many people that are okay with that. And until there becomes more people that are not okay with that, we're not going to be able to change it. I think it's very unhealthy for us as a community, and I hope that it changes. But right now, I just feel like there's just too many people that are okay with it.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, Virginia. And Brian, do you mind me jumping on here for a second?
Please, go for it.
So I lived on the east side on Southeast 27th Avenue by the sheriff's office. My neighbor was Satchel, which we're all familiar with Satchel's. Quite privileged neighborhood to be in on that side. But what it made me realize was that there is a disproportionate amount of leadership that is driving residential sales and commercial sales to that area versus the organic drive. So how on earth could we provide housing on the east side if there's no Publix? I'm sorry. And if you're not going to prioritize, if you're going to prioritize the second Publix on 13th, well, we have a problem, because for me, on where Hawthorne hits Southeast 27th Avenue, that to me is, to be quite frank, the most gorgeous part of Gainesville. If I'm going to be just honest with you, this is, if you go down there, you will see fishermen just organically fishing on the creeks, looking for their own meals, crawfishing. To me, this is what Gainesville embodies, is touching our ultimately our native or our American roots, which Lake Noonan was found in. But the east side in Lake Noonan was founded on the go-getters that live there right now, but are being currently suppressed by our government. So I'm really glad to hear you, Virginia, point these out, because as someone else who's lived on the east side, I think while development in Celebration Point is, I don't know if I can even say fine, it's happening. I think it's more important, as someone who also worked in GTech, in that biotech center. GTech on Bioturf was my first job. It's more important to develop on the east side. And Virginia, you couldn't have said it better. Thank you. Your input is so valuable for us to just think we know the ecosystem, but we don't. We don't. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet.
You know, with that, the question that Aiden shared. So in 2018, UF Santa Fe, the Chamber jointly released a report, Racial Inequality at Lashar County. Our results were not great for us, that we were the most unequal county in Florida. That's not great to hear. And we're halfway through 2020, 2.5 years later. How do you think we've changed? Have we changed? Thoughts on that topic?
Okay, so are we referring to the equity study that UF did a few years ago?
I believe so. So Aiden said it's the UF Santa Fe Chamber one. So I believe that's the equity study.
I'm thinking of the one they released when you and I were serving on that committee together.
If you don't mind, Aiden, just dropping the link in the Zoom so everyone in here has reference. If you don't mind, Aiden, I apologize to put you on the spot for that.
Yeah, so I hope this doesn't come across as too cynical or too pessimistic, but the reality is that we have been doing studies and studies and studies, and we have been creating plans. I had no idea. I sat down with Dr. Portia, I can't call her last name right now, but she was at Santa Fe for a very long time and then retired, but she's been in Gainesville a very long time. And I sat down with her one day and I was just talking to her, and somehow we got on the topic of that study. And she said, well, we don't have to read that one. We can read the one we did 5 years ago, or the one we did 3 years before that, or the one we did 7 years before that. So her point was that, and my belief now, because I have seen so many strategic plans that it is ridiculous. And now I feel like if we, and I know this sounds cynical, and I apologize for sounding cynical, but I'm tired of the research. I'm tired of the plans that go nowhere. We know that things are bad. We know that we need to do something about these things that are bad. Can we please just start doing things? And that's how I feel about it. I feel, but at the same time, I do understand that there is a place for research, and I do have a greater respect for research now than I have ever had before. So I'm growing too. I do understand that there's a need for research, but I also believe that there is a need for action. And the one thing that I respect most about our organization, Gainesville Black Professionals, is that we are about action. Please do not call me because you want to talk about something. Call me because you want to do something. And if you want to do something, we will be 125% behind you, and we will make something happen. If you just want to chat for the next 3 years, please find someone else to chat with, because we have chatted enough. And don't get me wrong, like this, I think this is a great platform. I've hosted some of this. We're going to continue to host these conversations because I think conversations are good. But I think that when you come into a meeting, let's leave there with some action items. And I think that too often we meet and we don't leave with action items. And that's no fault of anybody in particular, because there's a lot of things. You can come up with a plan, but you've got to generate funding for that. That takes time. You've got to generate people that are willing to do work, and that takes time. So I respect all of that. And I'm not trying to say that anyone has not done a great job. I'm just saying, I think we've done a lot of research. We've created a lot of plans. Let's pick one, let's follow it, and let's create something.
Yeah, it's time to stop writing the playbooks and start playing ball. I think that's what we need to start doing.
Yeah.
It's funny, like this is the conversation is flowed very well, because the next question we actually have is about Gainesville Black Professionals, and like, what are your goals for the year? Like, what can we as a community do to help out? Is it driving donations? Do you need sponsorships? Is it having us follow you on social media? If anyone here, and I hope there's some takeaways and some calls to action after this, after this AMA, what can we do to get more involved and start making more action happen?
Yes, all of those things are important, and all of those things help us. We are a nonprofit organization, but as we all know, nothing happens without funding, and I get that part. The magazine is so important to me this year. I was sitting in a Zoom meeting with a whole bunch of other top level professionals in Gainesville the other day. And one of them reached out to me through the chat, a private chat. And she said, Virginia, I'm ready to share my story. And I want to share my story in Synergy. I literally just started crying, because people want to talk. People want to share their stories. So this year, more than any other year, Synergy is so important to me. I am going to make sure that absolutely everybody that wants to share a story has an opportunity to share a story. So yes, if you can financially support that endeavor, that's great. We have ad space, we have sponsorships. The other thing, though, that is most important to me, I just would love to have you all at our events. Come to our events, meet people. Let's get to know one another, because you will be so amazed at the quality of Black professionals that exist in our community and the numbers of Black professionals that exist in our community. I said earlier that on average, we have between 150 plus people at our events. But we have a return rate. And what I mean by that is that people who have come and they come back and they come back is probably less than 25%. So almost every event that we have, we're having between 60 and 70% brand new people that have never been to one of our events before. So if you think about 5-6 events a year, and each one has 70 new people that have never been there before, that's a whole lot of people. And we need to be connecting with those people, because those people can do great things in our community. And that's what it is. So yes, definitely any support, but definitely following us on social media, attending our events, that goes a long ways.
And if someone on the call while we're here could go and find the Facebook page and share that in the chat, no time like the present, right? Let's get folks involved and let's support. So the next question, Aiden, we had about the Gainesville's evolution. I think we touched on that, just talking about Virginia's experience here, and then especially the question on the past 2.5 years. So we're going to go to Will's question, which is about you, Virginia, and how you do it. So between working at Feather, Gainesville Black Professionals, Synergy, it's a lot of things. Those are 3 full-time jobs. How do you keep motivated and focused, and how do you get so much done?
So for me, I think this is where my mental health background comes into play, because I really do spend a lot of time self-reflecting. I spend a lot of time processing things. This is a place where Feather has really come in. We have a morning check-in. And when I tell you, when I turn on that screen, I know that I can talk to them about anything that I want to talk about, and I can just dump. And it is good having that place where you can just dump. And we all as individuals have to learn how to process and how to decompress. Before I got on this call today, I had gotten a headache earlier, and I had went and laid down. And then when I got up, I kind of felt funny in the stomach, and I was like, oh God, you're just getting nervous. So I just started praying, and I just asked God, just, lead me, direct me, help me to know what to say, help me to be relaxed. And then actually I have a great team of ambassadors. I have a team of ambassadors that literally, I don't think anyone on my team has ever told me no. And not only there, but anytime I call on somebody in the community and say, hey, can you, I don't think I've heard a no yet. And so I think it's just the love and the support that I get from my ambassadors, from my family. My family is very supportive, from my Feather team, and from the community at large. I mean, like, the community really fuels me more than you all will ever know. The people who have been texting me, like, I've had people who literally have just, actually, I'm at home, literally. So any contact that I've had has been people intentionally reaching out. Hey, are you okay? Hey, do you need anything? Hey, I just want to make sure you were good. That means so much. And that just helps you to understand that you're serving a purpose. And that helps me to keep going.
Yeah, that sense of community is important, and leaning into it too. Let the folks around us support us and lift us up. Yeah. And then of course give back to them when the time is right and appropriate. Yeah. So James had a question, and this is something that I'm a little bit I guess uninformed on. So it was an extension to Aiden's question on your talk about the local old guard and both sides. Do you have any take on proposed Seminary Lane project?
Yes and no.
And would you mind, and this is mostly for me, I actually don't know what that is. Would you mind just giving us a quick debrief?
Yeah, so, and I have to give the limited knowledge that I know as well. But what I understand about Seminary Lane is that there were some affordable housing in this neighborhood about 10 to 15 years ago. I'm not sure exactly how long ago. They tore those homes down because they had, and they probably was apartments or condos or something, multifamily spaces. They tore them down because they were dilapidated. They were, in shambles. And they tore them down with the promise that they would rebuild, and that the rebuild would be affordable housing again. A lot of the residents, I guess, became displaced and needed somewhere to go. Of course, they found housing by now. It's been at least 10 years. But they left there with the belief, the residents left there in fear that it would turn into student housing. So now, 10 years later, however many years it's been, there is an investor that is now interested in that land, and they are going to put student housing on it. So I think that people are looking at it as gentrification, and that they are moving Black people out of their homes. So I see that 2 ways. The first way is that America was built on free commerce, I guess. Like, you have the right to sell your property to anyone that you want to sell your property to and make money from it. And if you have sat on your land for 10 years and no one has been interested in purchasing it, and then someone comes along and they want to purchase it, do you owe it to the community not to sell your land in order to protect their feelings? Personally, I don't believe that you do. But do I also sympathize with the people who feel like they have been displaced? I do, because I understand that there is a thing looming over us that's still called racism. And I understand that sometimes there are groups of Black people who are not able to purchase their own home. So they rely on affordable housing, they rely on rentals. So then those people end up in the shuffle of things, in the shuffle of our free commerce and our investors. And it's unfortunate that that happens. So I see both sides of the picture. I mean, like, would we feel better if it was a Black investor that was coming in and purchasing it? I mean, I think he should be able to purchase and make money off of, you know, free enterprise if he wants to. So again, I hate that if I sound like I'm being evasive, because I'm not trying to be evasive. It's just that I see both sides of the coin. I feel for those who felt like they were displaced, but I also understand that we cannot hold that person who owns that land accountable to the whole community either.
That was a great answer, and I think James echoed the same sentiment in the chat, so thank you. And a lot of these are just very complex questions, and it's hard to give like a direct, you know, because we feel a lot of feelings about these different topics, and again, it's like someone should be able to make money and go make an investment, but is it the right thing to do from our community? And kind of balancing those scales is a tough thing to do, and we're of course going to have feelings on both sides of those scales. So we're going to do 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap up, because I know we want to talk about the chamber event that you and I discussed that we want to make sure folks that are aware of. So the last, we'll say, very serious question is, given this is from Mike, thanks for the great questions today. Given the recent events, including riots, protests, and the numerous historical reports, do you think that anything will change? And if so, like, what can we, everyone on this call, advocate for to help try to make that change happen?
So I have to believe that something is going to change. Literally right now, the only thing that is getting me up every morning is my belief that something is going to change. I woke up about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I really felt like I was in the middle of the civil rights movement. And that is not a healthy place for a Black person to feel that they are. And I realized instantly that my parents, and they did a great job, because my parents taught me how to navigate the system of racism. But when I saw George Floyd get murdered, and there have continued to be murders since then, I realized that this system cannot be navigated. This system has to be dismantled. The system of racism has to be dismantled. And I have to believe that we can do it. I believe that the riots, that the protests, I was amazed that they're still going on. So I was thoroughly impressed with that, the tenacity of people continuing to say we're not at rest. I am impressed and I am humbled by the gestures that are being made, because what is happening is finally enough people are angry, enough people are saying that whether George was Black, white, or otherwise, someone felt it was okay to take that man's last breath and do it while being recorded. And I think that as a nation, the majority of us felt some kind of way about that and felt some degree of disrespect from that, whether you're Black, white, or otherwise. That had to penetrate to some degree. And so I think now that enough people are seeing things and recognizing, oh, that's what they're talking about. This really is real. I need to stop taking advantage of this. People are dying. So I know that I'm making light of it, but that's what's really happening, is that people are finally waking up, myself included. Because like I say, I was taught to navigate this system and I really thought I was navigating it. And I'm a very optimistic person. But now I just realized it has to be dismantled. So as individuals, we have to make sure that every single day we are keeping our eyes open to the system of racism. And you have to break it down in your perspective spaces. You have to be willing to be that voice on your job, in your church, in your social group that says, nah, not today. Let's do better. We know better, so let's do better. What you just said is going to hurt someone. The decision you just made is going to harm someone. Let's stop doing it. So I am very hopeful. I am determined that there will be change. I have spent every day on a conversation with somebody, or sometimes somebodies, multiple people, trying to figure out what we can do. And I'm not the only one that is having these conversations. And so, yes, I do believe we're gonna make a change. Each of us as individuals, we just have to identify where we are and put an end to it.
You know, I think we're going to wrap with that one, to be honest, because the question that we had, I think that's just a good tone for us to end on. And
It's so inspirational,
yeah, it's
Virginia.
amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, thank you for going so deep emotionally and intellectually, Brian. Sorry to cut you off, but you really did go further than the normal individual would in this circumstance. In a group of, what do we have, 34 people? So, Virginia, I just want to say thank you for opening up and allowing us to provide you an open, safe space for you to continue to allow these conversations to happen, because this is conversation 1 of 1 million that need to happen in order to change this stuff. So I'll just take it back to Brian. That's all I really kind of want to say, and just say thank you so much.
Thank you too. Can I say one last thing?
Absolutely.
In closing, I just want to say that I am taking these platforms and I'm talking so candidly because I really want people to have a perspective. So if you have other groups and you want me to talk, I don't mind talking. If you want to talk one-on-one, I don't mind talking, because I think that there's value in talking, and you can reach out to me. I'm on Facebook. You can have my number. It doesn't matter. But the other thing that I want to say to you is that I don't speak from the Black experience. I speak from Virginia Grant. I'm one Black woman. So if you want to know how Black people feel, you're gonna have to talk to a few more Black people. I apologize, but I'm only one. My perspective is only true to my experiences. So that's my only.
And thank you so much for thank you for pointing that out, because our view is so limited, especially as white individuals. We are limited in our view, in our perspective. So it's important for you to bring out some of the limitations we have in the way we view things. With that said, I'm going to pass it over to Brian. Thank you so much, Virginia. I see a couple founders and other people on here. Rick, Ariana, Aiden. It seems like it might be a great time to get one of your team to loop in with Virginia to perhaps just ask some sort of just some questions about how can my organization do a better job at representing specifically, and let's not be unbold or bold, but specifically helping the Black community in Gainesville personally, and that's my goal. So with that said, I want to pass this torch back on to Brian. I'll mute myself. I'm an extrovert, so I'll always steal the throne. Virginia, thank you so much. Brian, if you could close this out, I love you. I love you, Virginia. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's it. We'll share your contact info with folks in the thread, and we'll talk about, do you want to say one small plug about the chamber event coming up that we can get folks involved in there?
Oh, yeah. So shortly after all of this started, Alyssa from the chamber called me up and asked how we could partner and what we could do to make a difference in the community. So earlier this week, we hosted a workshop called Groundwater, and now we're moving into a series of conversations called Crossroads, and it's examining the intersections between race and business. So you all will probably find that very insightful. As a matter of fact, our first discussion is next Thursday, I believe. Let me find it. I think it's next Thursday. And Aiden is one of our panelists. So he is going to join us and talk with us in that. Let me see if I can find a link real quick for you guys. And so,
if not, I'm sure it would be shared throughout our network,
okay,
regardless, Virginia.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Melanie
I'm
shared it.
I'm sure
It's in the
everyone.
chat.
Posted it again.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Cool. I see Chad and Allie, Paris, thank you for joining in and listening to the calls. I know you all are very busy, but we appreciate you on the call as well. Virginia, thank you so friggin' much. Brian, closing statements?
That's it. I think we don't let the conversation stop here, and thank everyone for attending. And Virginia, thank you for being so honest. I think this was I think this was great. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for all the private thank yous that you all are sending. I love you all. Thank you.
Everyone have a great day, and we'll hope to see you at the next AMA. And I hope everyone, I hope you all have a great night.
Thanks.